Scorpio by Wyatt Roy. Wyatt, you got a convincing win. Were you happy with that?
Oh, I think naturally anybody's happy when they win, but it was a difficult campaign. I was never perceived as the most likely candidate, and I think I had to get out there and work hard for that. And I'm very proud of the campaign that we ran. I think we did run a fairly traditional grassroots campaign, and we tried to make ourselves as available as possible. And this is sort of the approach that I'd like to take now as the federal member. Just while I've got you here, I'd like to take the opportunity again to say thank you to all the people out in the community that gave me their support. I'll be working very hard to repay that trust, and for those that didn't, I'll be working very hard as the federal member to represent everybody regardless of where they come from.
And are you actually the federal member at this point? Have you been sworn in, or what is the process? What happens?
So last Thursday I've been declared as the federal member, and then on the first day of Parliament I'm sworn in as the Member of Parliament. But as far as it's concerned, I am the federal member now.
So when you're sworn in, do you take the affirmation?
I'll be taking an oath, not an affirmation, so on the Bible, and we have that option
right.
too.
And so that is an option that's there for many people?
Yeah, it is an option that is there, and it is something I did think about a little bit, but I feel most comfortable, I think, taking the oath, and I think that's as much about tradition as it is about religion, so I'll be taking the oath.
How do you feel when there's 6 out of 10 people didn't want you? I mean, when you look at the primary vote, you only got 43%. I mean, I know John Sutherland got 37, but there's a lot of people who voted informal. We'll go back to that in a minute. A lot more than other electorates. And then you had a gaggle of independents running there, and you only got 6 out of the 10 votes, but yet you're still the member. Would be a lot of people out there have a right to say, well, hang on, this wasn't the result we should have got?
Well, I think, one, we have to look at the system that we have, and we have a preferential system, and that's just reality. I got the majority of the votes. But the reality of politics, as I said throughout the campaign, and I say now, is you can't walk a mile in everybody's shoes. Not everybody gets always what you wanted when you vote, but I hope everybody did value their vote and participation in the democratic process. And if you didn't get the candidate you wanted, well, I'm sorry for that, but I will work very hard for everybody out there and hold me accountable for what I say and what I do.
When you look at the preferences and you look at when we go from that area, you're almost 52% of the vote. Does it say that we shouldn't have this preferential voting? Does it say that really it should be first past the post? I mean, you would have still won anyway.
Yeah, I think it's an academic argument. Really, it's the system that we have, and we have to deal with it. It's the system that we have. I'm happy with it. It works, and it's worked for quite a long time, so I'm not a big fan of changing things. At a state level, we have optional preferential voting, and I think that's quite a good system, if I'm being honest with you as well. I mean, if you want to give your preferences, you do, and if you don't, you don't. I quite like that system, but federally, this is the system we have, and I'm happy to work with it.
And do you anticipate that there's going to be an opportunity, say, to push that line within the joint party meeting? Is that something that you would push?
Well,
or is that a low priority?
No, I think in this parliament, particularly given that we had the hung parliament, now a minority government, I think the independents have made quite a good case for some parliamentary reform. I think we might see more, we might not, but certainly reform around things like question time and those areas, I think, are excellent reform that the independents put through. Christopher Pyne, who was our shadow spokesman, did a lot of work in negotiating very good changes to the parliament and to question time, particularly simple things like limiting the answers of questions and making sure that the answer to questions are actually relevant to what was asked. I think no wonder people in the past have felt a little bit frustrated when they watch question time on TV, and I think there's a huge opportunity in this parliament to start to slowly transform that and change that, and Christopher Pyne deserves a lot of credit for the negotiations that he put into that.
Just, and I'll leave it very shortly, but the informal vote here was much higher than anywhere else. I've had a look at a lot of other seats. You're sitting up on about 8% informal. Most of them seem to be 4 or 5. I mean, if you look at your leader, Tony Abbott, sort of sitting down about 4.7. Is there anything that you would put that down to?
The figures that I had was the largest informal vote was 14% in other seats. So it's up there, but it's certainly not above average, I wouldn't think, or I don't think it's up there with the highest if there's 14% in some seats. But it is a little bit worrying, naturally, that across the board in this election, I think we had the highest informal vote that we've ever had in all seats. So you do begin to worry about that a little bit. And I said to people on the day when I was walking down those lines where people were lining up for, in some cases, an hour and a half to have their vote, or an hour to have their vote, I would remind them when they were frustrated. I have a lot of mates who come from Zimbabwe, and I promise you they value their vote, because they don't get to have that say back in Zimbabwe, and here they do. And it is naturally frustrating that there is a high informal vote out there, but hopefully over time perceptions will change and people will have a bit more of an interest in it. And given the breakup of this parliament and how it is different to what we've seen before, I am an optimist. I might be proven wrong, but I am an optimist. I think there is a great opportunity to see a more active politics in this country.
We'll come back just after this break. Our discussion this morning in studio is with Wyatt Roy, and he is now the member for Longman. Be back with you in just a moment. On Morning Magazine, and my guest is Wyatt Roy. Wyatt, we were just talking about some of the issues that might be in the new Parliament, and one of those will be reform of question time. Before the election, you were saying that the cost of living, health and small business were what you had heard from your door knocking. How are you now, as a member of the opposition, going to be able to influence that to our advantage here in the Longman electorate?
Well, and this is a really good question, and it's something, naturally I think you are frustrated when you end up in opposition because you can't push through what you wanted to do. But I tell you what I can do, and I will continue to take the exact same approach that I took throughout the campaign, getting out there, talking to the groups, the communities, the organisations that are directly involved with these things in small business, Chamber of Commerce, these sorts of basic groups. In health, people like the Moreton Bay General Practice Network. In the environment, people like Rodney Blair, who was the Greens candidate, runs Creek, which is a great environment group now. I'll be going to those groups. Just the other day I spoke to Peter Coldrake, who's the VC of QUT, and we spoke about the campus here and reform. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be sitting down with those people that deal with these issues on a day-to-day basis, and presenting a case for what needs to be done in the Parliament and within my own party room. And in opposition, that's what you can do, and you can stake your claim, and you can still represent your local area effectively. You can't deliver the big spending items as you wish you could in government, but in opposition I can be a fighter for this great local area. And there are some big challenges there, and I look forward to making a claim for what we deserve in this area, and I think what we haven't always had.
But the spotlight has been very much on you in the election campaign. We're 3 weeks after that election, that spotlight still seems to be there. Is it true there was 500,000 hits on one of the Facebook or whatever on Saturday night on your site?
Yeah, on the night I was told I was the number one topic on Twitter worldwide, and there's all this interest in it. But the interest that I say is good for the local area, because every time I talk to a journalist, every time I'm out in the media, I'm talking about it. And if I can use that, and I make no apology for using any interest in me to give what is a great local community a stronger voice out there, I will. And I hope to think that I did that throughout the campaign, and I will continue to do that as the federal member. And now, not only do I have, as a candidate, one thing that you don't have is the Parliament. And now not only do I have some media interest, and we'll see how long that lasts, but certainly now I have the forum of the Parliament, the institutions of the Parliament to stake a claim for this area, and I'll be doing that.
We'll might head to that and get some thoughts on what's going to be in your maiden speech. I think it's about the only one they're going to let you sort of have a go at without interruption. But you also said before the election that you've been doing door knocking a lot, that the door was going to be open, you're going to be out there and you're going to stay connected. Those were your words, which listeners is on our podcast, 101.5 FM. If you want to hear some previous interviews from Wyatt, we're going to track you over a period of time. We're just going to see... keep you honest.
Hold me accountable, I say. It's what we need to do. We need to hold our politicians accountable. And look, I will do my absolute best to do that. It's what I want to do. It's the reason, I don't do it because I have to. I do it because I want to. And I think I encourage everybody to hold me accountable. I encourage people to come see me. Naturally, at the moment, as I said, I've only just got the keys to the office this morning, so give us a little bit of settle-in time. But definitely, I do very much want to be out there.
Where are the doors going to be open? Where is the office going to be?
Well, the office will be my opponent's old office, so it's on Morayfield Road. So it's John Sullivan's old office, so it'll be there. So I've got the keys this morning, and now, there's reality of politics that when you become the member, you can't advertise for staff until you are actually the member. So I was the member 2 days ago, so those sorts of things have to happen. But I encourage everybody to come see me, and if I'm not seeing you, I'll get out in the community. But the one thing I do want to say, as good as the parliamentary reforms are, and I think they are very good, we will be spending probably up to 6 months of the year in Canberra as well, which is a good thing, I think, for our democracy, but not always so good for being out in the local area. So if I'm not around, it's because of those things. But hold me accountable, and I look forward to continuing the same approach that I took throughout the campaign.
I've always thought that half of the lousy decisions we get out of our federal parliament is because it is in Canberra and it's cold and it's freezing. You're listening to 101.5 FM. We'll come back in just one moment and talk further with Wyatt Roy.